Let's add Mike Holmes, the Sons of Saturday football film analyst, former high school football coach. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Sam, Robert, it's a pleasure to be on with y'all. Wow, what a weekend. That's about all I can say so far.
Yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts from the game. I was there in Nashville. Robert was watching in Charlotte. Is there anything that you saw that explains what happened there? Because that is just a dumbfounding result for the Hokies.
As someone who has tried to figure out a way to get a group of younger kids motivated to step out on the field for the opening game, I mean, you're seeing it right now with the Florida State. I'm watching the Florida State and BC game. BC is now up 14-0, and Florida State does look. The preseason hype, Nick Saban said it best, it is rat poison. And no matter how much you try to, as a coach, to tell your kids to ignore it, how much you try to tell your kids to say, this is not something we pay attention to, it is something that you cannot ignore. It gets into social media, it gets into everything else. And I really think that we thought we'd be able to roll out there, and this happens with kids. They roll out there in the first half and they feel like it's a walk through game, and they get punched in the mouth. And, and that's, Mike Tyson famously said, everyone's got a game plan until you get punched in the mouth. And I think our game plan wasn't very good. Offense, defense, I don't think we had a very good game plan going in. I think our players, didn't feel like they needed to go as hard as they needed to. We can talk about that a little bit more. But bottom line is, it's not the best way to kick your season off.
Yes, we're going to get into a couple specific moments here. And the first one I want to get into is opening drive. You let up a big play on third down on a fade route. It happens. You get the stop. You give up a field goal. You're okay, right? 3-0 to start the game. That tipped interception. Man, I'll tell you what, I had multiple people text me right after that. If that ball gets to Jalen Lane on the tunnel screen, it was a tunnel screen into the blitz. He was gone. There was no one there, and he had two blockers in front of him. Do you think that kind of play, a tip ball interception on your own half after you're only down 3-0, it looked like the team after that just went into, fetal position. And it took them another 2 quarters to get out of it.
Yeah, not as much the team necessarily, but I think specifically Kyron Drones. I think Drones' mentality after that interception, he was scared to look at his first read. He was scared to trust his gut. And, and a lot of our offense, with being RPO based and everything that Drones does very well, it is pre-snap read based. We're not asking Kyron Drones to go through 3 and 4 progressions across the field. We're asking him to, hey, let's look at what the defense is giving you right now, pre-snap, and that's determining where you're going to go with the ball. Whether you're going to keep it, if this guy opens up, if that guy bails, the guy on defense bails, and he's going to be able to settle down, yes, we can hit that spot right now. And if he stays anchored down, now we're going to take off and run. That's pretty much the gist of what I feel he's going through in his read progression. But after that tip interception, even though it was not his fault, it was a great play by the defensive lineman, bar none.
Yeah,
great play. It was nothing that he could control, but there's nothing that you can really coach to fix that in between the ears. And I think it really took the rest of that first quarter and the second quarter to get over that. The biggest thing was that had to deal with that same thing. We had 3 possessions in the first half, y'all.
Yeah.
3 possessions in the first half. We never had the football. So there was no opportunity for Drones to really get over the mistakes that he was making early on in the ball game. That one mistake that he made early on in the ball game on extended drives, to be able to step into it. When we did have those extended drives in the second half, you saw what our offense is capable of. You saw what we can do. You saw everything that everything preseason, all the rat poison said that what we look like. So it really was that tipped interception, Sam. Drones went a lot of the year early on last year without throwing his first pick. He had a lot of time to get comfortable, to get confident. And then that first pick on, within his first 3 throws, that was just a rough turn of events.
That was the biggest play in terms of expected points added change in the game. That was almost an entire touchdown. Virginia Tech was driving. They had the ball on the 50-yard line. So that was, in my mind, the biggest play of the game. Obviously, a 4th down stop in overtime to win it. That's obvious. But that play, if that ball isn't intercepted, Tech wins the game. Like that's
Absolutely,
in my mind. Robert, your thoughts on kind of the first half of this game? Virginia Tech found themselves down 17-0.
Yeah, Sam, I think it was you who texted the group chat that we all have with Sons of Saturday after that interception, and you said that was a 2022 ODU play.
Yep.
And sure was. Yeah, I mean, I think Mike just explained it well. He got punched in the mouth. And Mike, I'm curious your thoughts on this too. Sam Acho during the broadcast, one point that he made was that Vanderbilt was doing a lot to disguise their blitzes, disguise their coverages, and try to confuse Kyron, especially in terms of him having those pre-snap reads and just making those difficult for him. Did you see any of that? And if so, how would that affect Kyron?
Yeah, they were doing a lot of what you call sky and cloud coverage. So they're showing a too high safety look, which if you're a run-based offense like Virginia Tech, you see 2 high safeties and you're like, oh, heck yeah, we're going to run the ball. And what they were doing is that they were showing those 2 high safety looks, and then right before the snap, they were either rolling one safety down to the strong side, one safety down to the weak side, and rolling those guys back. So now they're into a cover 3 look. So they're kind of dropping those. They're dropping those 2 corners back because they don't want to get beat deep with our skill positions. And they have the 1 deep high safety, and they're allowing their outside linebackers to cover the flats. But they're kind of rolling those guys down in that motion. And I know I'm using my Frank Beamer fist here, but those guys are it really, if you're not used to seeing it, and we haven't seen a Clark Lee defense since he was at Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Clark Lee has turned the reins over on that Vanderbilt defense for years. So I don't know if they were looking in a whole lot of film from the Clark Lee Notre Dame days where he used to do that. So I don't know necessarily if that was something that they were really anticipating happening. And that's what happens in that first week. You don't really have a whole lot of film. People aren't showing a whole lot off of spring footage. You're trying to look at stuff from previous years and seeing what they're going to do. I don't know necessarily if that was necessarily the case. And I think Price said that after the game is so much. They threw some stuff at us that we weren't necessarily expecting. But, and I think that was really the biggest thing we saw in that first half, Robert.
Yeah, and I think I agree. And I think that it felt like, talking about the game plan, it felt like the team was prepared to play Vanderbilt last season. That's what the game plan felt like. And you would have hoped, and again, we weren't in the room, so we don't know what they were going through, but it sure seemed like they could have used more time looking at those Notre Dame defenses and New Mexico State's offense last year.
Yes,
in particular, I would have watched every play from that Auburn game last year.
Yeah, and in addition to what you're saying, Robert, there were multiple times where we were, and it changed towards the end of the second half. We started making those adjustments. But in the beginning of the game where Pavia was really carving us up, we were slanting our defensive line. And against a mobile, and hopefully we change this because we're going to play mobile quarterbacks for the most part the rest of the year. I think there's only 1 or 2 non-dual threats that we're going to see. When you slant your defensive line one way or the other, you're basically giving that quarterback the read pre-snap. So you're basically saying, hey, all I got to do is sit there and almost slow mesh it like you're Wake Forest and wait to see what those defensive line guys are going to do. If they go this direction, I'm going to go in the opposite. So if it's the running back that's supposed to go the opposite way, or if it's me that's supposed to go the opposite way, that's what I'm going to do. So we were helping him out. Now, towards the end of the first half and through the meat of the second half, we started running stunts and twists with the defensive line, and that really kind of made them kind of stand pat, and you kind of saw some different effects. We were able to get some stops, some 3 and outs every once in a while. We were able to kind of slow things down. But we were really, with our game plan, we were just saying, hey, we're going to outspeed you, and it's not necessarily the best play call is going to make sense. We're just going to out athlete you. And, these guys are used to playing against SEC teams. They're not, with the exception of Pavia, obviously. I mean, he's got one game against Auburn, but the rest of Vanderbilt's line, they're not going to be intimidated by it. So they said, okay, we're just going to take what we gave them and then react off of that. And that's why they ran the ball, 80% of the time in that first half.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about this too, because it really looked like, especially at the linebacker level, Virginia Tech wasn't reading that option well. You're supposed to have, all right, I stick with they ran out of the pistol. They ran a read option over and over again, with sometimes loop around a wide receiver or run it with the fullback and turn that into basically a triple option, speed option out to the side. It looked like our linebackers were just totally, totally lost on who to go after. A lot of times you had that outside linebacker cutting in, trying to get the dive play, when clearly under every single rule of defending the option, you stick outside and you attack the quarterback and you let somebody else come and get the running back. They hired 2 option offensive coaches and they got an option quarterback in the portal. How were you not ready to defend the option week 1?
It's really hard if you don't see it every day at full speed as fast. I mean, it was the same thing that Virginia Tech experienced when we were playing Paul Johnson and Georgia Tech back in the day. You can put all of the best guys that you have on scout team, you can do everything, but unless you have guys that are running at full speed and that's all they do, I mean, we really should have been truly, instead of not even New Mexico, we should have been watching Coastal Carolina film, because that's where Tim Beck was prior to New Mexico State. He was there at he was there with Coastal Carolina with Grayson McCall and all those guys. It was that offense. Now what you're looking at too is you're looking at a completely different type of option with that pistol attack. When they were in that single back set pistol look, it's pretty straightforward. You're gonna have one guy that's designated. One designated on quarterback, the other guy's designated on the running back. That's fine. But when you're also running with that extra back there, when they were running in that 21 personnel, they were or that 12 personnel, they were sitting there with that extra fullback that was going to kick out the end, and they were blocking back against the grain, creating a hole. And now you're left with 2 guys that are scraping downhill. Usually it's going to be a safety on the running back. It's usually going to be an outside linebacker on the quarterback. So they're going to have something along those lines that but if you blow any type of assignment on that upfront coverage, and a couple times, and this is what we'll pick up on a lot on the Hokie hitter this week. So make sure to pay attention to that. A couple times our defensive ends, whether it was Cole Nelson, whether it was APR, or whether it was Burgos, we got sucked back to the inside. So they were trying to reach block us on the outside and get to our outside shoulder on the defensive end. And we took the bait, stepped to the inside, and they just washed us on down and allowed Pavia and those running backs to get to the outside and get to the edge. So it seems super simple, and it really comes down to discipline and assignment football, the same thing that we had to deal with Paul Johnson for a decade when he was at Georgia Tech.
Minus the offensive lineman diving at kneecaps. Glad we didn't have
no
to deal
cut
with
blocking.
that.
Yeah, that's right. No cut blocking.
Yeah, it just seems like the Hokies, no matter which way you slice it, we're not prepared for this game. Offensively, defensively, the offense picked it up, but it just seems like the coaching staff was not prepared for this game. Well, no matter what way you look at it. And that's disappointing, because this is year 3 and you knew exactly what the opposing offense was going to run. And even if the defense was running coverages differently, running slants differently, it's still the same personnel back there. And it was not a very good personnel. And you saw later in that game, there was a lot of open plays in the secondary and a lot of busted coverages, and Virginia Tech was not ready to take advantage of that in the first game. Mike, as we kind of wrap up talking Hokies here, this has been awesome. And first off, you shouted it out, but look at Hokie Hitter. It'll be on the Sun Saturday website page. It'll be on the YouTube page. We're going to have some awesome film analysis content from Coach Mike Holmes. How do you get the locker room back? How do you how do you reset here? Because you got a game coming up against Marshall at home. And I mean, must win is an understatement, I think, for that game.
Absolutely.
And this is a Marshall team that's not expected to be very good. Yet another one. They won 45-3 last week. And I don't care that they played Stony Brook. They won 45-3 and you lost. How do you get your team motivated and ready and game plan for the next week?
I think the biggest thing is that I think you show them the film, you show them where you need to correct, and you move on, but you hunker down on the fact that you got your butt whooped. You know, the pride aspect of what it's like in that locker room, they're not going to want to go out there and lose again. I know, the betting line in Vegas has started at 13, 14, and it's bumped up to 17.
It's up to 20.
It's up to 20 now?
It's up to 20 now. Yep.
Wow.
Whole touchdown.
This game will prove who we actually have in the locker room. Do we have dudes in the locker room that can overcome and win? I'll be honest with you. That and a lot of teams, it happened to a lot of teams this week. The first half of the first game is an anomaly. Throw it out. It's over. It's done. Once you start getting into the nitty-gritty and you started getting into adjustments and you started getting into overall athletes and depth, we beat Vanderbilt in the second half.
Yeah,
now,
that's a great point.
We started them out with a 17-point spot. That can't happen. But we beat them in the second half of the game. We played better than them in the second half of the game. We got up by 7 points towards the end. We just couldn't close. Mm-hmm. It was that is what your learning experience is. That is your teaching moment for this week and for the rest of the season. Hey guys, you started out playing your worst football that you can possibly play. You battled back, you had the lead. However, it just wasn't enough. Don't let it get to that point next week. Don't let it ever get to that point going forward. And now I think from this point going forward, it's kind of like how we looked at the team going into Boston College last year. I believe going into Boston College, we were coming off of Florida State, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not wrong, Florida State, we came out, we played hard, but we got whooped. We came out that next week, Boston College, noon game. We rolled out there and we took it to them from the first snap. And from that point on, we really didn't look back a whole lot, minus Louisville for the rest of that season. And so I think this is your moment where you can rally them around. I think that if one thing that our coaching staff has is that motivational factor, where we can talk those guys up and we can get them fired up and getting them going. It's just really, really difficult when you're off your normal schedule and and you can say it, it's an 11 o'clock kick, whatever you want to say, but it's the first game. I really think these kids were drinking the rat poison. I really do. Yeah. They were reading their own press clippings for whatever it is, but by the time they woke up, it was too late. And that's your lesson that you got to teach about going forward.
Yeah.
All great points. Go on, Robert.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I said this in our group chat, but I mean, the last 4 games that Tech has lost, they have won their next game by an average of 24.5 points. So, you keep that trend up and you cover the spread against Marshall. So hopefully that happens.
That's a great little nugget there, Robert, and some reason for some hope. Coach Holmes, I got one more question for you after these 2 quick ad reads, because we're going to talk about 2 of our sponsors here with Sons of Saturday. First up is Jack and Coke. You see the can at the bottom of the screen. Jack and Coke, 2 legends, 1 can. Jack and Coke, the #1 cocktail in the world, is now available in a can. It's true Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey mixed with Coca-Cola or Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. If you're watching your figure a little bit, they're available in a can at your local grocery store and convenience store. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke, ready to drink. Put it on ice, throw it in your cooler for a tailgate. It is the absolute perfect tailgate drink and beverage. It is going to make it much smoother. Jack and Coke, 2 legends, 1 can. Please drink responsibly. And we are also brought to you by our good friends at Throwback, the best performance athleisure wear in the game. Nashville was full of Throwback polos, whether it was the classic state of Virginia print or the special collegiate Virginia Tech specific print. It was everywhere. Rowback. It is performance activewear designed for those who crave activity. They are continuing to put new drops on there all the time, so check it out. Use code 2DEEPVT with your first order to get 20% off at rowback.com. If you already got something, use another email. Use a friend's email. Get a gift for a friend. They make great Christmas presents. The hoodies especially. Everyone loves the hoodies. It is incredible. Use code 2DEEPVT for 20% off your order. Rowback, crave activity. Coach Holmes, the last question I got for you, and this is one. Sam Shutt came in here early. I wanted to ask you about this because this was credit to me. I was pretty calm considering how this game was going. This was the only time I lost my cool in the stands because you have 6-7 months to figure out who's on punt safe and who's on punt return. And you have 99 numbers and 65 players. So how the heck do you have 2 number zeros on the field on punt safe?
No one wants to hear this answer, but it happens all the time. We not so much in high school because you can't double up on numbers really just because of you can't buy enough jerseys unless you live in Georgia or Texas or South Carolina. So from what I have gathered from hearing about this, so apparently Jay Lane was supposed to be the guy that was back there. He was either dehydrated or banged up. And so we're trying to get a guy out there to go back and return punts. And number 2 on the depth chart was Ollie Jennings. So he goes out there. And so I understand that, Pry's call, the comeback on Pry on this, in my personal opinion, is completely out of bounds. Yes, the buck stops with him. He's the head coach. That's what it's all going to come back to. This is, in my opinion, this is something he has made the decision to call punt safe. That's his call. At that point, he has delegated responsibility to Stu Holt. He's delegated responsibility to everybody else, all the quality control people, to make sure the personnel that are on the field is 100% accurate. The head coach cannot be 100% responsible for all of the personnel getting on the field in the right spot at the same time. He's got too much going on. This is coming from somebody who, when he first started as a head coach, I used to try to micromanage everything, and you get caught in stuff like that. It just can't happen. So this is something that this is Brent Pry delegating authority. Now, granted, as any good coach is going to, he's going to fall on the sword. He's going to fall on the grenade, and he's going to say, yes, this is my fault. It stops with me. But I guarantee in the Merriman Center yesterday, there were meetings going on where he said, listen, guys, this can't friggin' happen anymore. You got to make sure that our number 1 and our number 2 guys, whoever's back there, we know that Kelly Lawson's got to be out there. Kelly Lawson is playing linebacker. He's on our punt rush team. He can't leave. He's got to be on there. So whoever goes back there, we either have a jersey flip or whatever we got to do, because Tucker Holloway's out. We got Allie Jennings back there or whatever. But we can't have this happen again. And I guarantee you won't see it anymore. If I can guarantee anything, it's not going to happen anymore. But
better not.
The throwback on Pry on this, in my opinion, is just a little bit OB, just because it's not necessarily it is him, but it's not. But again, it's something that can happen. It's something that can happen, and it's something that there was a dropped ball, and it's not even really Stu Holt. There's probably somebody on quality control. There's somebody on there. There's 20 coaches on the sideline. Somebody can't get a jersey on there. And then Price said, yeah, I saw it and it was too late and I couldn't call a timeout in time. Yeah, I get that. But then that was probably somebody in the booth, getting in his ear saying, hey, we got 2 zeros on there. and by the time the ball's already snapped. So that was the biggest, what you want to say, coaching blunder, I guess, that you want to call it. But for it coming back on Pry, I don't think that's necessarily right. But the buck does stop with him.
Yeah, it's one of those, again, I think it's become a saying in Virginia Tech land. That's an ODU play. I mean, that is just one of those plays that you can't really truly explain it away, and it just happens. And that was, I mean, Tech could have had the game won at that point. Like, I really do think that is one of the more unfortunate plays for that team, because they had done, like you said, so much good work to get back in that game and take the lead. It is deflating, but you got to learn from it.
And Sam, you think about it this way too: the tipped interception, and that punt penalty. That's 10 points.
Yeah, and I think you can also throw in there the 3 fumbles and no recoveries.
Yeah, I think we had 5 opportunities at a turnover. I think there were 4 times the ball hit the ground, and then there was 1 missed pick with Delane on a tipped ball.
Yep.
Yeah, and so we had 5 opportunities where the ball hit the ground. We didn't hop on it. You had those 10 points, but who knows what would have happened on that drive. I mean, we could have probably at least gotten a field goal out of that drive without the tipped interception from Drones. So, I mean, think about the point swings in that game. And again, you're playing it. We want to think Vanderbilt is Stony Brook. We want to think that. That is an SEC team. They dip from the same talent pool. They have a better recruiting base and better recruiting outcomes than Virginia Tech has overall year after year. They have, even though they're the bottom of the barrel of the SEC, they're an SEC team. So you can't give them those opportunities to stay in the ball game. And those are those things that change the tones of a game. And sometimes you can't recover, no matter who you are.
Yep, all great points. Coach Holmes, we'll keep you. It's been awesome. Thank you so much. Again, people, check out Hokie Hitter on sonsofsaturday.com as well as on the YouTube page.